Greetings and welcome to Georgian Crossroads. This is Byrne Power coming to you from Tbilisi, Georgia. And today what we're going to do is the third part in our series on our little trip to Kojori. It's only, 45 minutes from Liberty Square by bus. One lorry gets you there. I spent 3 nights for, about 80 lari a night, about $25 a night. Not bad, cheap. And tomorrow we're going to walk all the way back to Decayed, which should be very interesting. But today what we're going to do is we're just going to explore one building. I don't know much about it. I've tried to find out, but I haven't found out anything. If you happen to be someone who knows something about the building we're going to discover today, then please leave a message and let me know what exactly I'm exploring. It's right in the center of town. It's an old theater, not a movie theater, but it had a stage, a proscenium arch. It was a theater. When does it go back to? I'm not exactly sure, but come with me and let's explore it. So, from the center of town, there is this archway that actually leads from the street down into this almost a park area, but there is this theater just kind of standing there. And when I saw it on the first afternoon of my visit to Kojori, there is a part in me that absolutely must explore abandoned buildings, especially buildings like this. This is the actual address of the building if you want to find it, although I think once you get off at the central bus stop, you would certainly find this. You could just go up for an afternoon. Now, this was a weird thing. There's just all these bottle caps, plastic bottle caps, and I figured in my, I don't know what, that there was some kind of game to be being played with them, maybe getting them on that one little brick or something. But I entered the building where I did find a lot of the plastic bottles that those caps belong to, and decided, let's see what's here. I had seen someone else coming out of the building, and it occurred to me, well, this is Georgia. People don't get up in arms if you go into a building, which in other places you would be chased out of by, if not dogs, at least people wanting to keep you safe. There was nothing to keep anyone safe in this building. A 10-year-old child could wander in here, and given the Georgians' ability to cross a busy street without getting hit by cars, probably be pretty safe. But I was fascinated by this place. I think what fascinates me, and this has fascinated me most of my life, are decayed buildings. Particularly the grander, the better. There's something almost like God reclaiming the building, bringing it back to the elements. I mean, if you came here in another 100 years, it didn't have the fine style of Art Nouveau. I assumed it was made maybe during the Soviet period. It had a tin roof, not a well-designed roof, but it seemed like some sort of sheet metal material. And as I walked through here, those bookshelves really tempted me. That's my own issue. But as I walked through here, just these shapes I love the dark shapes, the cutting and angular shapes. I love the floors that are disappearing into the ground. I was told that someone bought this place, some very rich man, and then nothing ever happened with it again, which I think you could probably save the outlying structure and rebuild it. Or you could tear it down and just leave the front up and maybe some other parts and leave it as a structure in a park or something like that. But of course, I like these crisscrossing black patterns in the sky. I've always loved that effect, and I'm completely drawn to it. So, when I went in, I went through these doors and wanted to look beyond. There's the very high, at least 3 floors roof that's cracked. You can see the tin. But I went up the stairs into the next layer. I'm about 2 layers in right now. There's a old counter there. Maybe they collected tickets there. I don't know. But when I went in, I saw that this wasn't a movie theater. It was originally designed as what you would call the legitimate theater, or just a real theater, complete with proscenium arch. And you can see going back there. Now the floor is all gone, and you can see that the architecture that held up the roof has collapsed. I have the feeling there's a story about the life of this building. It doesn't have the ornamentation. It really feels like a product of maybe the 1920s or 30s Soviet Union. There it is in color, some of the parts of the chairs, but I'm guessing those are later additions to the theater. And I would guess also that this has been collapsed for at least 2 decades. Maybe it is a result of Georgia's civil war in the 1990s. So back around the front, again, I think this part could be saved as part of a structure of a park. And these walls seem solid enough. They're just cement. But nevertheless, I didn't go down underneath. Although I have in other buildings. There was an asylum on Roosevelt Island in New York City that I used to go down into the total darkness and bring friends down there and then turn off the lights, the whatever flashlights we had, and just tell them, this may be the only chance you ever get to experience total darkness. Yes, I could not get any further into the building because of the collapsed floor, so I decided to go around to the side. And again, this is what lets me know that it's Soviet era, because look at these. If it had been any earlier, Georgia was taken over by the Soviet Union in 1921. If this had been made before that, those would have been rounded curves. They would have been designed much closer to something like Art Nouveau. But this blocky construction definitely has a Soviet feel to it. And this is now inside the back. I'm basically standing under the proscenium arch and the stage. The stage would have been that darker line. And there's the proscenium arch. The curtain would have hung in front of that. You can see more of the collapsing roof. And again, this is not great architecture, but nevertheless it was big, it was grand. And if this was at the center of the town, one of the things I've mentioned several times is my feeling that this town doesn't have a center. Had this building survived independence, I think it would have had the necessary ingredient to a center. It would have been a summer place to come to watch theater performed. The way it is, people bring their children up here to play in the summers to get them out of the city. Now I'm going around to the back of the building, and there's trash on the ground. It's not that interesting, but nevertheless, like I said, had this building been taken care of, I think it would have been something to rally the town around instead of having essentially two convenience stores and a drugstore at the heart. And there are some parks. But the parks are not that big a deal. They're good. I'm glad they have parks. Good for the children to play. But one thing I noticed was these trash bags. Someone had evidently come along, and maybe they came along and were cleaning it up. Or maybe they were just bringing their garbage here. I don't know. And if they were cleaning it up, they didn't finish. They left the bags there. And the bags are slowly being torn open by, obviously, birds and dogs and such. Now, around to the front, not directly connected, is this old building, which just looking at the architecture, this feels older. This feels from before 1921. Has a bit more of the flair of late 19th century up through independence, Georgia, from the Russian Empire up through independence after World War I. Now that is a perfect example of what happens in Georgian culture these days, a sterile building. But if you walk up just a bit further to 38 Yunkarebi Street, you'll find this building. And this building is interesting. I asked about it, and it turns out it was an orphanage. It was a place for children who didn't have parents. And as I looked around it, I was fairly impressed by it. And I walked a little bit further and found another building further on. This one seems to have some inhabitants who actually live here. The orphanage was empty. And again, that would have been a central building, and I still think it is a central building that you could reuse. Likewise, this building. These three buildings would have formed, I think, much of the center of the town. And this guy had a very interesting presence. He wasn't mean at all, as much as he was kind of like almost a warning. He was just sitting there, he was just barking, wasn't coming towards me. I actually saved some meat and threw towards him. And he didn't, when I came back, he wasn't grateful at all. But again, more buildings that abandoned, or this looks like obviously something more modern that was started and then abandoned. But if you cross the street and walk down on the other sidewalk, you get this kind of lovely, fenced-in sidewalk. There's older, more beautiful buildings from the end of the 19th century. Quite fascinating. So there you are, our mysterious theater. Are creepy. I love this place. I love old decayed buildings, and this is a wonderful old decayed building to explore. Thanks for coming along with me, and come back for part 4 in our series, our little trip to Kojori, just proving that for almost no money you can go away from Tbilisi, take a break, and go to someplace fascinating, take a hike, explore, and a strangely interesting little town. And, and if you want, you can subscribe to the channel, you can hit like, or you could even give money to the channel. And there's a PayPal link below. So far, no one has ever done that. I have over 500 subscribers. You could be the first. Think about it. And let's see. Well, that's about it. So for now, I'll just say Droebit. We will meet again.